you think about a watchdog, a snarling, ferocious beast appears in your mind. Consider the vision of a champion and an armored hulk of a man with a giant sword forms in your brain. Our guest today is a watchdog for consumers and a champion of business, yet hardly fits the previous descriptions. Let's meet Connie Kann, who is the Area Director for the Better Business Bureau. In fact, Connie, when I see you, I only see a smile, no razor teeth, no apparent weapons. Are you in disguise today?
No, this is it.
This is it.
This is it, right.
So, and I love your name because it's so fitting for if people know you, Connie Kann just works, doesn't it? Because you kind of can do anything. It seems to me.
Really, thank you. I try.
So you've been in this job now for
About 14 months.
about 14, just about 14 months and 3 days or something? Is there some specific to it?
Well, I figured you were going to ask me that, so I calculated it.
Okay.
Yes, so it's right around 14 months, yes.
Okay. So we title the show kind of scams and I think the Better Business Bureau is oftentimes known for being that kind of champion for consumers. And I know there's another side to it, which we'll get to.
Yes.
But can you kind of maybe share one of those stories where you guys were a champion for somebody who called up or whatever, contacted you and said, I kind of got the short end of the stick in the deal?
Yes. Just here recently, actually, there is a woman who has been working on her own. It's a rather big case. She had to go to the Attorney General's office. It's larger than what the Better Business Bureau can handle. Because if it has to do with some sort of like a dollar amount, we only go up to $3,500.
Oh, I didn't know that, actually.
Yes. But no one really for these past couple of years has been really listening to her story. Now, she did meet with the Attorney General's office, and this particular person has had a number of complaints against them. And I've had the fortunate opportunity of meeting Jason Knowles, and from Channel 7, he's the consumer investigative reporter.
Okay, let me back up a second before
Yes.
we go that part. So she lost way more than $3,500?
She lost $40,000.
$40,000. Okay, that's fairly sizable.
$40,000 for work that she has a contract on that says that this person will take care of everything. I don't want to go into the specifics of it.
Right, but this was a company that other complaints have been filed on?
Right,
Had
misrepresentation in advertising,
Okay.
and then not standing behind the product.
Had those complaints been filed with the Better Business Bureau? Or
No,
okay,
because of the dollar amount that we advised her to go to the Attorney General's office.
okay. Now, how did she know that how did you know there was other complaints about this company?
She told me.
Okay, so
She told me.
was
And she
aware.
met with the Attorney General's office
Okay.
locally. He came up and they met in a library.
So you then became aware of this, and you then connected to Channel 7 in Chicago.
Yes.
And what was your intent with that?
Well, I happened to meet Jason Knowles at a Gary Chamber lunch, and I went there not knowing he was the guest speaker. And for 2 weeks, I had been wishing that I had a contact in Chicago News so that when there was something that was greater than what we could handle, I could give someone a call. And just from my own sense of, I don't really want to call it procrastination, just making that next step, wondering, okay, I've never called a Chicago news station. And then, as luck would have it, when I went to Gary Chamber lunch, and he happened to be the guest speaker.
So you approached him about this whole issue.
I
Now,
did.
now, this is kind of interesting because you have a whole process when someone files a complaint of kind of looking into it to determine what are you trying to determine. If I called you up and said I had somebody perform a service for me and I feel like they just did a horrible job, and what do you do to what do you do to make sure that I'm legitimate with my complaint?
First of all, I can listen to your complaint, but I can't really comment one way or the other because we're more the middle person between the consumer and the business. And none of the complaints come through Northwest Indiana. They all go through our corporate office, which is in Fort Wayne. So people can either go online to file a complaint, or I can mail them a form. And then in our Fort Wayne office, they track everything. Then the paper trail starts. And we have, from the time we get a complaint, 48 hours to get that complaint out to the business. and then the business has 2 weeks to get back to us on it.
Okay.
But then the consumer is kept in the loop all that time. And they might go back and forth a few times, explaining what the situation is, but they both get an opportunity to air their side of the story.
And the staff here in Northwest Indiana then kind of fields that complaint once it comes from Fort Wayne, so you guys are looking and you're dealing with the business specifically? You're doing that, or is Fort Wayne doing that?
Fort Wayne is doing that.
Okay,
yes,
they're doing that.
Absolutely, because they have to create that paper trail all in one place, and they have all the specialists there. The
Okay,
dispute resolution specialists.
So they're trying to gather all this information and ultimately try to decide. I mean, what are they trying to decide here?
Well, they go back and forth, and sometimes the consumer will say, okay, I can see the other side of the story, or the business can say, all right, I can see what the consumer wants me to do, and then the business will try to rectify the situation.
So you're trying to bring resolution to the
Absolutely.
situation.
That's our goal.
That's the bottom line. So this is not about a consumer feeling ripped off and you now become, as I described it before, my champion to pounce upon and really stomp on that business. You're trying to bring some resolution to this.
Absolutely.
Okay.
With both of them being able to air their sides of the story.
All right. So I'm going to go back to your bigger case then, to this woman. So when you have someone like that, how do you guys get involved? Again, how do you know which side that she's right or wrong or whatever in this situation? Because she said she's got a complaint and she's unhappy. Did you refer to the Attorney General? Did she go there on her own?
I happened to meet her when I did a presentation. And once she told me the scope of it, I said, it's beyond what we would be able to help you, that you really need to go to the Attorney General's office. And that's what she did. And then she happened to talk to a Times newspaper reporter that advised her to contact one of the news stations in Chicago. And in the meantime, she happened to call me, not knowing I had just made this contact with Jason Knowles.
Because it's interesting. I mean, here we are part of the press too, and the media. And the complaint oftentimes about the media is they jump on these things and will say, oh, look at this poor woman and how horrible she was treated or how she got ripped off in this situation. Right. But we don't know yet the other side of the story, right?
Other than the Attorney General's office has investigated it, and this particular person does have sanctions against them currently, and they have been fined for false advertising.
Okay, so there's more to it than that. So,
yeah, there's more to it.
So it took us a while to get there. It took me a while to get to that point with you, but I was kind of like, how do you know when to jump onto these things? So what happens when somebody just says, I mean, it's righteous indignation, right? It's just like, I know I've really been treated poorly in this situation, and the business is just wrong, and they need to be punished, or they need to be put out of business. I bet you've heard that every once in a while. These people should be closed down, right?
Right.
I mean, what do you do when this person the consumer is so adamant about punishing or crushing that business?
Right. Well, in this complaint process, they can show a paper trail, receipts, documentation of calling the business, so they can outline the full complaint, and then the business can show their documentation as well. So if you're an accredited business, most of the accredited businesses, because they don't want to lose their good rating, will abide by what the consumer says.
But what do you do when the person just says, I don't care what you're telling me and what the business says, they're just a bunch of scoundrels and are just terrible people and should be punished?
Well, this is why we have specialists in Fort Wayne that have been at this for like 10 years.
You don't get involved at that point?
No.
Okay.
And I'll listen to a consumer, but I can't comment one way or the other.
Okay. So that's kind of the way the Better Business Bureau is set up. So your job is more relating to the businesses and keeping them as members of your organization. Is this the way it works?
Yes, that and being the face of the Better Business Bureau. Get out there in the public, remind people that we're here, because so frequently people will forget that we're here. Okay. And they will do business with a company without checking our website, and then they get burned.
Well, the Better Business Bureau definitely has a good brand, a good name. I mean, everybody seems to know who the Better Business Bureau is. Seems like.
Yeah.
It's been around how long?
Over 100 years.
And so how did it get started even?
It got started by Sam Dobbs, who was a salesman for Coca-Cola. And he wanted to put a Coca-Cola vending machine in a candy store. And talked the candy store owner into letting him put this machine in there. And the sales of Coke just skyrocketed, that then he went into being a sales manager, and then he got interested in advertising ethically, because this is back in 1900, and he was seeing so many advertisers that were making false claims back then, and he was actually instrumental in creating the first 10 commandments of advertising, and he went on to be the president of Coca-Cola. So he was actually the one, then these 10 commandments of advertising then went into becoming the Better Business Bureau.
I'm trying to imagine how you could kind of unethically market Coca-Cola. What could you say that would be wrong? It's a refreshing drink, or?
Well,
I'm just trying to think.
I'm sure he was doing it ethically,
right.
but what he was seeing was so many other people out there doing it unethically.
So,
And we've recently had somebody misrepresenting the Better Business Bureau on their advertising, and people were falling prey to that.
so what does that mean? They have a marketing piece and they put you on it?
Yes, what they did was they originally were an accredited business, so probably about 10 years ago. So they have our old logo, and then along the line, they weren't following through with their product. They were taking money up front from people, only finishing half the job. They weren't following through on any of our complaints, so we ended up pulling their accreditation because they weren't following through.
Oh, this is a long time ago. This is what happened. Okay.
We pulled their accreditation, so now they have an F rating on our site. So what this person did was he created his own marketing piece, and rather than sending it through the U.S. mail, is he went into upscale neighborhoods and he put it in their mailbox. And it has our old logo on it, but on the top of the piece it says an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. And it's a large piece, and it looks as if the postal person puts it in there, because it actually says Postal Service, has that it's, you know,
If they would have mailed that, does that make it a different infraction? I mean, does that make it more illegal that they've mailed it? I just wonder. Wonder why you did it that way.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe the cost?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe saving money, but on the other hand, I just wonder if it's more, it gets the federal offense if they're, you know, kind of like crossing the state line or something.
Right.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Interesting question.
I don't know, but he did receive a legal letter from us on that.
So why should businesses want to be part of the Better Business Bureau? Why, if I had a business, why would I want to do that?
Because of the trust and integrity that that we have for over 100 years. And once people see that, it's a known symbol, and they trust you. So you go from being somebody who they don't know what your previous history is to now, you know, you've had to sign a contract with us that you're going to abide by these 8 standards of trust.
So it conveys this level of trust that people can say, if they're a high rating by the Better Business Bureau, I can probably trust that this company does a good job.
Yes, they're going to stand behind their product.
So do a lot of people come to your website and look companies up and try to find their ratings? I mean, are you guys able to measure that?
Yes. There's in 2013, we had 140 million people go to our website to look up business reviews on 4.5 million companies. And
140 million.
140 million
Wow,
people.
that's pretty impressive.
And it's all free. You don't have to pay for that.
Well, and I can see how this is so important, because so many businesses now transcend state lines, regions, and everything. It's so a lot of your big accounts, I would assume, are, you know, even McDonald's and just about everybody who consumers go to all over the country want to be probably part of this. So, you guys also kind of deal with some of these scams and stuff that comes up? Do people call you and go, "What's up with this company? I've never heard the name of it all, but they're calling me and trying to sell me something I've never heard about before"? I mean, how often does that come up?
Right. I will pretty typically get a couple of those calls a day. And I track what they're about, because if I get enough of them, then I want to do a press release on them. But what I typically do is just sort of counsel people through that, in that frequently they're senior citizens or it's someone who's very young.
Can you give us some examples of just some of those that you've been getting, you get calls about, or some of the ones recently?
Publishers Clearinghouse, but what they want them to do is go to Walmart and get this card and put, you know, $250 on it. They'll actually start out in the 2,000 to think if they can scam you at 2,000, and they keep you on the phone long enough that you might agree to even $50, so they start talking you down. And I'll ask the person on the phone, did you start to feel, did you sense that red flag during that conversation if they started out at 2,000 and then get down to 50? And they'll pretty typically say, yeah, I didn't understand what that was about.
So is it most of it, those kind of phone calls where people are trying to get money out of people? Is that most of the scams?
Money, or targeting younger generation and their identity, trying to get Social Security numbers, their checking account numbers, and then they will have different stories for the reason why they would like that.
So identity theft's a big issue. I mean, do you get calls about the identity theft thing? I mean,
I don't get specific calls if somebody has had their identity stolen. I will talk to people, anyone who happens to call, and advise them over the phone, if they're happen to be calling, like say about this Publishers Clearinghouse type of thing, about not giving their Social Security number out over the telephone. And anymore, you're not supposed to give out the last 4 digits and your date of birth also, because that tends to be the big thing of what they're looking for, since a lot of people
but everybody keeps asking that.
I know.
Everybody keeps asking your last 4 of your Social Security number and
Yes.
your date of birth. What are you supposed to say to them?
Just say no. Is there another way that you can get that information? And pretty typically there is.
So
There is.
So we need to get that message out to people.
Absolutely.
To quit doing that, right?
Yes, and the other thing is to put a security freeze on all of your credit. I did that at the beginning of the year, which means that if somebody does steal your identity and they want to now open up credit cards, they can't do it because you have frozen your own credit.
Well, so how do you do that?
You can Google just security freeze Indiana, and it'll take you right to the page to do it. And then you do it through TransUnion, Equifax,
Okay.
and Experian.
So what does that do when you freeze your credit? I mean, you're still able to use your credit cards, right?
You can use your credit cards, but you can't open up a new one unless you choose to lift your security freeze.
Oh, okay.
And I had kind of forgotten that I did that because I didn't think I was going to be opening up anything.
And you tried to open a credit
But
card.
what I did was I wanted to change cable services. And they wanted my Social Security number. And I said, no, I'm not going to give that to you. And she says, well, let me see if I can find another way, which she did immediately. Excuse me. And when I told her because my name's Constance, so she checked and she says, oh, I see you have a security freeze. So she was able to get in there, but she couldn't find out, and she needed to check my my credit rating in order to
Okay.
offer me this particular
and
package.
and you had to lift that credit freeze in?
Yes, I have
Okay.
to lift the
You had
credit
to
freeze
work.
and then you can put it back on.
Okay. What's the best part of your job?
The people I meet and educating people,
Is
And-
it the consumer side or the business side?
both, absolutely both.
And you've got an active board of directors for this organization?
I do.
That works in this area?
Yes.
So why would somebody want to, again, be involved with your organization, like on the board or be part of your volunteer corps? Why would someone want to do that?
Just because of what we stand for, the trust and integrity piece. They believe in that. It speaks to the truth of who we all are. And
I know that you're a really positive person. You love looking at the positive side of things, but you're kind of in a job that you look at some of the negative things. How do you reconcile that?
I know that's a very good question.
Because you love spreading joy and cheer. I know. It's kind of your thing, isn't it?
It is. It's why I was born. Yes. I firmly believe that we live in way too much of a fear-based world, just fear everywhere. So I struggle when I start to hear these scams. At what point do you alert the public? You don't want to when there's just one or two, because I don't want people going through the world being that there's more for them to be frightened of. So, so yeah, that's a bit of a balancing act for me. But I want to, when I do presentations, I say to people, I just want you to be aware, two separate words, not beware, like it's fear and something to be frightened of. Just heighten your level of awareness of what's out there.
So we're down to the last minute, and I just want to know, so are you continuing to spread joy and cheer to the whole world, Connie?
Absolutely. It's why I was born. Yeah.
And this job will let you do that?
Yeah. Yes, because I do. I focus on the positive more so than the negative, because there's a ton of positive out there, and I believe that our thoughts create our world. So I like to focus on what's positive.
Good, because that's the way I like to always end my show, with make a positive difference, and you'll get to hear that today.
There you go.
So thanks for being on here, and it's good to know your name really is Constance, even though I've known you Connie all the time.
Oh, but don't call me that.
Okay.
Please.
I won't. Thank you for being here, Connie. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking me.
Okay. For this editorial, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to present it as an open letter to all those people in cyberspace who try to scam us electronically, specifically through emails. It is addressed to those who are attempting to disrupt our lives and daily functioning. Here we go. Dear hackers, or whatever you call yourselves, let me make sure that my letter is going to the right group of people. If you have sent emails telling me that you have $1 million to transfer into my bank account, or you want to give me a $50 gift certificate or a free computer, or you have an unpaid invoice that I need to take care of, or you have shipped my order and are providing the tracking number, or you get the idea. And when I click on the convenient link which you have provided, you invade my computer, access my personal settings, or infect my electronic world with some malfunctioning application or a crippling virus. And when I respond, you attempt to get me to send money or take a credit card number with the only intention of stealing from me. I am addressing this letter to you. I have one burning question. What is your problem? Why do you find it so important to make my life miserable? Why do you want to rob me of my money and time, or perhaps my good mood, joy, or sanity? Do you have nothing better to do than sit around writing programs and emailing your poison to innocent people all over the world? I wonder if you are angry, disgruntled, discontented, unhappy. It puzzles me. I just don't understand your motivation or personal condition. Your anonymity makes it impossible for me to understand you. I don't know how to help you realize the negative impact you have on people, or to provide you with a more productive, fulfilling way to use your time. The world would be such a better place if you would take your talent and use it for good. You could send emails to people telling them to be cheerful and enjoy life. You could write an application that would help others find their lost keys or missing socks. You could provide a link that sends lunch to my office staff each day for free. Look at the great things you could do. If none of those appeal, how about writing a program that blocks all the crazy people from sending this crap to my computer? Without regard, signed, Keith Kirkpatrick. Hey, thanks for watching today. We really want to hear your thoughts about our show. Send your comments to our email address on the screen, or reach us through our website, which is also listed. You may visit the website and watch past episodes of Lakeshore Focus. There are some great shows to enlighten, entertain, and educate. Join us next week for another Lakeshore Focus. I'm Keith Kirkpatrick saying, make a positive difference in our world today.